Marcelo. How are you doing today?
Hello, Mauricio. Very fine in you. My pleasure to be part of this initiative.
Great. Marcelo, it's been a long 6 years period down the road since you took over the digital business at BTG Pactual. Looking back to 2014, what's been, in your view, the main milestone that the financial markets have achieved in terms of disruptive innovation? Did you envision that the financial digital business would be the must-have or the place to go we see today in the industry? And finally, what are the next steps in fintech we will surely see in LATAM that developed markets already have?
In my opinion, I think one of the most important achievements in the financial market was on a certain way, to repeat what we saw in the retail business. So when we look to the past, Amazon started back in the 90s, and then a bunch of other segments and sectors were disrupted on a certain way. So we see here in Brazil, for example, we just bought Exame. It's a kind of magazine, very popular here in Brazil. We focus on corporate subjects and financial markets, and the opportunity appeared to us when the company went to bankruptcy, basically. So I think 20, almost 30 years later, we are watching the same thing that happened in the retail reaching the financial market, basically because we have a very strong regulation, and that's why it happened only now. But and besides of that, we see a number of different apps became very popular, and on a certain way, it changed the way that the society, the relation between the people and the way they consume. So it's a kind of changing in the way the people consume not only information, news, but also investments. So basically, in this sense, what we see is that the same way people is getting accustomed to use Waze and Uber, now they can download an app and open an account 100% online, as we have here in our digital platform, and so I think this is the main, how can I say, achievement that we saw in our industry in last few years.
So great. And I can see that Brazil's market has gained a strong momentum in digital business. We would kill locally to have it. And in that sense, there are a couple of big success names in terms of valuation, both in private and public markets. Considering that you oversee that business in BTG and obviously you also have a skin in the game, what's your opinion regarding the implied multiples we're seeing in private markets and public fintech companies?
Well, it's a very good question. Sometimes we have a number of internal discussions about valuation of a few fintechs like Nubank or Banco Inter, and just to give an example of two different players. One is a public company, Nubank, and Banco Inter, for example. Nubank is a private company, and Banco Inter is a public company. But it's very difficult to predict or to precise if the valuation is having a kind of a multiple too high, let's put it that way. But what we see is basically the market and the private equities, the investors are very excited about the growth that these companies are providing. So obviously there's a kind of challenge in order to make money with all this such a big client base. but by now the market is paying for growth and number of new customers. So in our strategy here in our digital platform, we try to focus on the high income retail clients. So we have in Brazil 200 million people, and but when we look at the people who has a minimum investment around $100,000 to 100,000 reais, we have 3 to 4 million people only. So in our business, we are focusing on this kind of client. So the acquisition cost of this type of client is much higher than the other 200 million people. So in our business, we are less fintech, we are less a new company or a new colorful card, and our business is more linked to our investment bank behind, and so that's why the numbers in terms of growth that we are reaching is very different. So we have much less clients, but much more money inside our platform. So our business is quite different from this kind of fintechs that are focusing on only growth of customers, and especially when we are providing credit in Brazil, a credit card or credit directly, it's very easy to bring more clients, especially in a poor country like Brazil. But so basically, long story short, very difficult to predict if in the long term, in the long run, these valuations will be right. So.
And looking to the future, how do you picture the financial market in the next 10 years? Do you think that we're heading to a world where traditional banks are the dominant players, but with a deeper and better omni-channel solutions? Or do you think we're going to experience a full transition into a whole digital financial industry?
Well, it's another very good question. When we look at development countries, we see when we here in Brazil and inside BTG Pactual, we like to look at the United States. It's a kind of a way to predict what we can reach here in Brazil. Sometimes we are 30 to 40 years behind U.S., but so that's why we will that we like to see what's going on there and how was the history in their case. But when we look at the U.S. Economy, you see banks like Bank of America, Chase, Wells Fargo, players very well positioned as real banks, providing credit, providing banking, daily banking, and credit card, things like that. And on the other hand, we see online investment platforms like Charles Schwab, Fidelity, Vanguard. So we believe that here in Brazil we're gonna follow the same way they did in the U.S. And the way we position our business here is exactly the same way we see Charles Schwab and Fidelity. So here in Brazil, at least, it's very difficult to predict what's going to happen in other countries. But at least here in Brazil, what we believe that we're going to see in the next 10 years is a shift, a migration from the wealthy of the Brazilian families, from the 5 big retail players to online investment platforms like ourselves. And one another trend that we believe it's going to happen is the number of independent financial advisors in Brazil will increase a lot. So just to give an idea, until 3-5 years ago, here in Brazil we had something like 3,000 to 4,000 independent financial advisors. Nowadays we already have more than 8,000 independent financial advisors. And we believe that in 5 to 10 years, we can reach 50,000 independent financial advisors, maybe 100,000 independent financial advisors. There are more than 500,000 executives working inside the banks. And as part of this process where the welfare of the Brazilian families will be migrating to independent, to online investment platforms, we really believe that these relationship managers that are working inside banks, the big retail players with brick and mortar branches, they're going to become independent financial advisors and maybe linked to our platform to help their clients to have better investments. So this is the main trends that I believe that we're going to see here in Brazil, and probably we will see that on a certain point happening the same way that in Chile and in other countries in Latin America. Obviously, it's very different when we are looking to development countries in Europe or even in Japan, where we already see this kind of movement happening in the last 10, 15 years.
Okay, great. Thank you. Very interesting. Thank you for the call, Marcelo.
Oh, Mauricio, my pleasure to be part of this initiative. You can count on us always. Very, very happy to contribute.